Hey everyone, I'm Lucas, and I'm here with Bola and Nikita. Bola works at Baseten, operating Baseten for Labs, and Nikita is with Nebius, working on Nebius's token factory. So we're having two of the leading companies here that really deal with global inference at scale in a multi-model and multi-cloud world, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Obviously, there has been a huge shift in terms of the industry towards inference, and that shift means actually changing what you do as a business in some cases. Nikita, this is a question for you to start with. You traditionally are a cloud provider. Traditional cloud, managed Kubernetes, virtual machines, the traditional cloud computing model. But with Token Factory, you are actually creating an inference play now. And, does that change for a provider like Nebius?
Yeah. Thank you for the question. So basically, we iCloud, yes, we do provide like infrastructure as a service, but usually every cloud need to provide some kind of a managed services where you just take some like high level of abstraction and serve on this layer. And basically that's what we did. Like 2 years ago, we decided, okay, everybody is doing training. We do understand what you do for the training. We do have such customers. Let's dive deeper into the inference and see what are the customers' demand there. Because inference obviously going to grow. Like everybody, like if you're spending money on the training, that's an investment. But if you're spending money on the inference, that's how the business grows. Like that's the appliance of the AI. And it seems that like, yes, inference is growing a lot. For the inference, the need of the customers is slightly different. They are not ready to understand like how many GPUs, megawatts, data centers they're gonna need. They want to talk to you in tokens. Like we're gonna have this RPS, we're gonna have this kind of traffic pattern, and that's like the service that we're building. Yep.
Sounds like a new world. Base 10 obviously is a rising star really, really quickly gaining attention in this space. And unlike Nebius, you didn't start out with a traditional cloud. You're a pure play inference provider. Tell us how you see the market and how you're capturing this opportunity with Base 10.
Yes. Yeah, so we've been an inference cloud from the beginning. Our customers have been running models on Base 10 since 2019, and the nature of the models has just changed over time, which changed what we had to do. But we essentially built inference from scratch, from the ground up, and if you know our tagline or our ads, it's inference is everything. And what that means is, there's multiple layers to really providing inference. And to simplify it, folks know the GPU layer, like the physical infrastructure layer. They know the cloud layer that makes it accessible. And what we do is that we solve everything that's needed on top of that to get to reliable inference at scale of serving models like economically to run your business, because that's what's required for inference at the end of the day. And the three main things on top of that is multi-cloud infrastructure, multi-model model performance, and a cohesive developer experience. And we've solved every problem along the way to get to here. Maybe 3 years ago, we got to a point where we couldn't get more GPUs in the cluster we were running in, so we built a multi-cloud world. We got to a point where we couldn't get more H100s for running a specific model, so we invested in the model performance to push the world forward. And as more models come online, we deepen these investments and grow with our customers.
You have a very interesting model where you don't just run across, the new GPU data centers, but also traditional hyperscalers, right? How many different providers do you actually have to aggregate and integrate? How does that work?
All of them. So we have. I think that the nice thing about Base 10 is that our customers are some of the fastest growing companies in history. Like they're the largest AI native companies in the world. And what that allows us to do is like, not only do we have like their demand, but we aggregate demand across many of them. And that means that like we effectively have to go get as much available compute as there is in the world to serve them. And that means, nowadays we work somewhere between, 18 and 20 cloud providers across 90 plus different regions. And we can scale models across multiple regions. We could lock them down for data residency requirements or for performance and latency requirements. But we work with everybody, and that's a privilege and a responsibility and sometimes a challenge.
Yeah, that sounds like a huge challenge. I don't want to be the person in charge of this, to be honest. So I'm glad you're figuring this out. Nikita, you're obviously much more deeply integrated, having a lot of capacity on your own, both in your own data centers. I think you're running some colo locations as well. What benefits does it have to be fully integrated and actually be able to tap into your own capacity? And are you extending beyond that?
Yeah. Thank you for the question. I do believe that's a really difficult task to work on top of all of those like tens of providers. We do have a lot of experience into building the cloud and how do you like do everything from the ground up. And there are a lot of like difficult engineering challenges on how you address them. Like sometimes GPU goes down, sometimes systems go down, data centers goes down, and we have like the best expertise in the world in that. And basically, we love to use this expertise internally in the token factory. And that means that like our requirements can go into design as deep as we want. Like if we want more RAM on the servers, that's something that can be cooked specifically for us. And it's going to be cooked not randomly, but with the team that like really understands how to do that. And that also goes to the, like, I don't know, when something is wrong in the production. We can debug everything, not just to like line of code, but to specific part of the PCB or I don't know cooler or some particular physical thing in the data center, and that's not like a way of saying it's really that we do have an incident where you can call a network team and there's going to be some physical change in site and it's on call. So that's a great thing that we have. And that's basically let us provide the customers the best like solution for this cost versus performance equation, just because we do know how to plan in advance and how to execute the best hardware for that. And we also have a lot of like data centers, so like this geo thing is also somehow solved, but for sure, like I don't know what's going to be tomorrow. Like, is it going to be thousands of data centers for Baseten and hundreds for us, or what? I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, that's a good question. Would you ever run in Nebius data centers?
Would we ever run on Nebius? Is that the question? Yeah. I think we already do run on Nebius. We love Nebius.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. I think the market is big enough for everybody these days, right? It's growing incredibly fast. So obviously a lot of players might be competing in some areas and they might be collaborating in others. Ultimately, the whole industry is growing so fast. And you mentioned earlier, redundancy is a big topic, right? Things go down, entire data centers might go down. We saw the little blackout we had here at the conference yesterday, to be honest. I don't know who spiked the data center usage in Paris yesterday, but something must have happened there. Let's talk a little bit about the models, actually. We're seeing this shift towards inference providers, and I think a big push of that is open source models, right? Bola, what are you seeing in the open source space? What drives people to use open source models, and why is that attractive for companies?
Yeah, so we see pull towards all kinds of models, and the way I like to think about it is building an AI product is a lot like, having a chef put together a great dinner for some guests. And there's a lot of things that, they'll put their heart and soul into and like specialize and make their craft and their secret sauce. And there's some things that they'll get ready made. And there's some things that they'll ask other specialists, that specialize in another recipe to come and put together for their guests. And in that same way, I think we see this kind of pull across model usage, right? So you have folks, as open source models cover all of the use cases that only frontier models were able to do. So that's like specifically, coding tasks and planning tasks. Like those are the two that were really specialized at the frontier level where there wasn't an alternative for the open source. That creates a pull for something that you could just pull off the shelf, is reliable, will cover some things that you will never have enough data to really differentiate it into yourself. And then there will be tasks that are more specialized that, you might just pull a specialist for, like diarization, for example. Like very few people have enough data to train a diarization model as good as Pionote, but you could just, go get that model, use it. It's specialized, it's narrow, sometimes open source, sometimes not, but it helps you do that. And then you will look at your business and you'll say, hey, like I have traces specific to my domain, or I have specific experiences that an off-the-shelf model can't do. And then you further specialize your own intelligence by taking an open source model and customizing it to outperform any frontier level model because they don't have that data advantage that you might have. So we see a pull to all of this. All of it is accelerated by open source because a lot of these models, even the specialized one or the closed ones, are post-trained off an open source base. And that has really accelerated the number of models in the market overall.
That's awesome. Nikita, what are you seeing with regards to use of open source models in Nebius Token Factory? How important is that for your customers?
Yeah, for sure. That's really important. Like we do have, like while AI is growing, obviously there are different kind of companies that's trying to do different things. And we do see that like there is like some kind of a maturity curve where people start from using closed source models like OpenAI, Anthropic, or whatever, and then they just like start to when they start getting traction, the cost basically source in the sky, and they want to have, and they start to get basically just two things. The first one, they do understand their customers better, and due to that, they have more data on that. And the second thing, they do understand the economics and how the product works better, and they want to apply these two things to make everything like work. And obviously for that, they start to fine tune, post-train, do something with the model. And yeah, like most of the models that run on top of Token Factory, they're still like some versions of the open source, but basically they're somehow customized by the customer. We do help them, but like it's still open source. And two, like with the open source, you have much more toolkits on what do you do with like solving this equation of quality, cost, and performance. If you want to take smaller model, I don't know. If you're solving a really like easy task, you might need just one B model and scale it to, I don't know, thousands of cards, and you can cover, I don't know, the whole population of the Earth and thus answer them on any question. There might be something different. And yeah, that's what we see, and we see that the open source is like basically I would want to say thank you for the model providers who are creating these open source models and that are driving the whole industry forward. Yeah, and that helps a lot to our customers, and yeah, we serve to them.
Yeah, very, very, very important recognition here. You mentioned, obviously token use increasing massively, cost being a factor here, and that being a large driver to also look into open source models. And then your point was more towards people might actually exceed what is possible with a closed source model by being able to fine tune the model, do post training, right? But let's stay on the cost side of things. We've all heard the stories of blowing through token budgets within 3 months of the year, things like that. I'm pretty sure a couple of folks in the audience might have seen this firsthand in their own companies. How do you even charge in terms of Token Factory? It's now less about selling capacity for the next 3 years. It's probably more about selling tokens. How does that look for a provider like Nebius that probably started much closer to the traditional GPU per hour, GPU for 3 year kind of model? Has that changed at all with Token Factory?
I would say that is not really important. How do we charge? Like the main thing is the language we speak to the customer. Like if customer want to speak megawatts, we can speak this language. If customer want to speak like GPU hours, we can speak this language. If customer wants to speak tokens, we do speak this language, and basically we like what we do in Token Factory. The main idea is we speak this language, we know how to calculate one to another. In the end of the days, there is some kind of traffic, and you pay for it in dollars. Like you don't pay us in tokens, you pay in some kind of money, and we do charge mostly on GPU hours for the bigger customers because they want to see the economics transparently. But the main value that we provide is that we show this transparency to them. Like you can, like, I don't know, run more traffic, you can have more redundancy, you might have like different chips, different data centers. We do educate, we do provide the expertise, and then it doesn't really matter what kind of a line item you have in the order form.
Sounds good. Can I, buy some kilowatts from you guys as well, or how does that work at Baseten?
You could translate it to something else, as he said. So, For us, like we do charge by token when that is the most natural way. And I think, as I mentioned before, there's just such a diversity of use cases and such specialization that sometimes, you have to run your own models. And in that world, it doesn't make sense to charge per tokens. And we have the flexibility, and we work with customers to translate and optimize for them and meet them where they are. And a huge part of that is, our investment in auto scaling and making sure that, you can really only use the model when you need to, as opposed to just have like a large reservation in spite of what you need. So a lot of people associate, tokenomics or paying per token just being for only what you use, but you could do the same with GPU per hour, given the right investment in the infrastructure, which is what we've been doing for a long time.
And then we just got to make sure that people are doing the token maxing as we all want that, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I actually we see a trend towards people looking towards token efficiency, where it's becoming very interesting. Like one of the things that's happening with benchmarks is how you perform on the benchmark by the new model really depends on what is the reasoning budget that you end up passing in. And since a lot of the spend is tied to specific tokens, what matters is token efficiency. And that's where I think, as there's a bridging the gap between the open source and the frontier models, one of the things that you'll see is like, even though GLM 5.2 per token is much cheaper than a frontier model, Opus or whatnot, per task it's only half as much, just because of the token efficiency. And this is where a lot of the specialization can help you make it even more token efficient. And that's not only helpful for cost reasons, but also is helpful for enabling novel experiences, to get to an answer faster than you otherwise would be able to with just an off-the-shelf model.
Maybe a quick question here at the end towards sovereignty and open source. Obviously, we've all seen the Anthropic models and what went on there with the US government. We're seeing Chinese models and the controversies over there. How is the world going to look in the future in that direction?
I think there is always going to be some kind of an opportunity. Like if there is a space in the market, somebody going to fill it. Like we are today in France, Mistral were like the best model providers of the open source, now the one of many. Like, I don't know, Chinese model might go, then some other models will come. And I'm pretty sure that open source will always be with us.
I think that's a great note to end on. Thank you so much to our panelists over here.